Okay. All right. Can you see the screen with the trees?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Can you see the forest with the tree?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
All right.
Always.
All right. All right. So for our last presentation today, we're going to talk about not only considering what assignments you have, right, and how you might rethink them given what's happening with AI, but also how you can use AI to help you create some assignments. You know, if you're feeling like you would like to go back and revisit some of the things that you've been doing. So that's going to be our main focus for today. Like with every session, if you would like a copy of these slides, then please feel free to scan the dyno. And if not, then feel free to ignore the dyno. We should give him a name, you know.
I know, I was thinking, do you know that I know? Oh, T that I know, T for teaching. No, I was trying to come up with something that would. John that I know.
We could have a naming contest, and then the winner could get a T for teaching mug.
Yes.
Actually, a free subscription to T for Teaching.
Oh yes,
that's
that's a good one. That is good.
All right, we're getting a little bit loopy at the end
We're
of the
a little
day,
punchy,
but it's okay, right? It's all right. So what we're gonna try to do today is think about ways that AI may be integrated into learning activities that you already have or that you're thinking about having. We're going to either draft or revise an AI assignment, and as has been the theme of today, because I wanted it to be like Tilt Tuesday or Tilt Thursday, but it's not. It's Wednesday.
Although this video, the screen may be tilted.
You know,
You missed that conversation.
I did. Yeah. We're also going to think about continuing to incorporate the Tilt framework into all of this because you know, we like it. Okay, so I would like to know, sort of like as we're just sort of getting started, you know, what are your current feelings about using AI with students in your discipline? Like, are you feeling good about it? Are you feeling nervous about it? Are you hoping to avoid it entirely? What sorts of things, like what sorts of what cans of worms could potentially pop open or continue to just explode as you think about using AI with students in your discipline?
And there goes my appetite.
Sorry, John. Michael, would you like to start us off, and then I'll switch to the people in the room?
Sure. With math in particular, there's a lot of nerves about students using AI only for the purposes of, you know, completing assignments as quickly and as inefficiently as possible without, you know, any real practice or any real engagement on their own with the material. Basically using it to complete all online assignments, online exams, which will have to be given in online asynchronous courses this summer since we've lost our exam proctoring service. And we're concerned with students just seeing AI as nothing more than a cheat sheet for what it is they need to do for the purpose of getting in and out of a class as soon as possible.
I echo some of your feelings in my discipline, which is writing, and it's really similar, right? Just using AI to kind of breeze through a writing assignment, to not really learn how to critically think or, you know, what good writing is and why we should value it. So, I mean, I echo some of your feelings, especially about using AI just to sort of like go through things and not really have to deal with them that much or think about them. John, do you have feelings?
I would agree with everything that has been said. My main concern is that I want students to actually learn some basic skills, because if they don't learn anything other than how to type or prompt, they don't really need a college degree, and they really haven't gotten much out of their time here that they couldn't have spent just playing with an AI tool for an hour or two. And you know, we'd like to see students getting some value in terms of improved critical thinking skills, in terms of actual skills and knowledge of some subject matter. And that won't happen if they rely on AI to do their work, all their work.
Right. Yeah, I agree. You're here for 4 years. Are you really just going to talk to ChatGPT the entire time? Yeah. Jessica, would you like to contribute to our conversation?
Yeah, I think for me and also my colleagues in health promotion and wellness, I think it's important for us to have our students prepared. Also with this climate right now, politically involving health, it's in kind of jobs kind of going away. It's really important for them to know the skills that they need as opposed to just using ChatGPT or any other type of generative AI. So I think it's important for them to learn the skills, be able to apply them, but we are allowing them to use AI because it is relevant in our field as well. So there's kind of this line of making sure they're like AI literate and able to use it effectively and not just to get the product out, I guess, or whatever it is, if that makes sense. So yeah, we're kind of like in the middle of trying to figure that out because there is in our field a lot of AI being used for telemedicine, telehealth. So it's very important for our students to know it and use it, but we want them to not just use that all the time.
And you bring up a really good point, and it's something that I feel also, with writing. And we were talking yesterday during our AI day when Emily and Morgan from who are both Penfield librarians were talking about information literacy, thinking about where we're getting our information. And I mean, now, like the last several years, having those good information literacy skills are so important with everything that's happening in our country, in our world. It's always been important, but now it feels super important.
Yeah. And there was an alumni panel the other day about AI, and they basically said if all they know is AI, we don't want them, but we want them to know how to use it. But if that's all they know, we don't need you.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, I have to watch that. I was so sad to have missed it.
Yeah, so it's kind of that, it's walking that fine line of knowing how to use it and that not being everything you know.
Yes. All right, so we all have some feelings about where things are at the moment. So as I was thinking about what we could do in this conversation this afternoon, I was thinking about the gen ed information literacy outcomes that have been revised and that will begin not this fall, but next fall. So I know we've kind of talked about this already a little bit today, but I thought it would be helpful to put them up on the screen so that you could see what those outcomes look like. And then the word outcomes is underlined. It is a link, so it will take you to the page where the information came from. So we're looking at these revised information literacy outcomes to include that students will be able to locate information effectively using tools appropriate to their need and discipline, that students will evaluate information from a variety of sources with an awareness of authority, validity, bias, and origin, and that students will demonstrate an understanding of the ethical dimensions of information use, creation, and dissemination, whether from traditional sources or emergent technologies such as AI. So I do think that it's going to be important for us, anyone who's teaching a course where information literacy is embedded, to be thinking about these outcomes, especially as Jessica, you talked about AI literacy, right? And how it is like a real thing, and it is something that we should be paying attention to as we're teaching our students.
Yeah, and something you said in one of your other sessions, your upper division creative writing class. So it's not, AI is not really relevant for them to use because you were saying like in the field, they're specifically saying we don't want anything AI generated, right? So it's different too, like for different disciplines, like health, we're using it in lots of different ways. Creative writing, you may or may not, like your lower division. So I think it's really important, to have that literacy with our students, but then as faculty to really be transparent about that information too.
I think that's, I'm sorry. Yeah. I think that it's helpful to be transparent with them in those ways, because even if let's say that you have some students in health promotion and wellness who are like, you know what, I really don't want anything to do with AI. I don't like it. I don't want to know about it. And I respect that they have strong feelings about it, one way or the other. But we are seeing more and more people looking for at least some knowledge on the subject, right? That you understand what it is, you understand general things about it. You might not have to use it, but you should at least understand sort of like the basics that kind of come along with artificial intelligence for your future. Okay, so as we're thinking about some of the different ways that AI could potentially be integrated into some of our assignments, we've talked about pretty much all of these over the last 2 days. But I wanted to just highlight some of the different ways that we could use AI tools, right? Whether it's in, you know, like a different class activity or perhaps in an assignment. And these are really basic, but, you know, we're thinking about, we're just talking about creative writing. And I gave an example earlier today from the AI Fellows program, from Bella's class, where she was using or encouraging her students to use AI to help them with character development, right? This is one way that AI could be integrated into a creative writing classroom, right? To help with that sort of brainstorming process. For a business or a marketing class, you could use AI to help analyze ad copy, right? And to kind of think about things like layout and messaging. For education, we've talked about this, how AI can be helpful for lesson planning. And just in John's previous session, you know, Jan was talking about how it's important for educators to know how to lesson plan themselves, but then also how they can rely on a tool like AI. We've talked earlier today about using AI to think about active learning strategies, right? Or to create rubrics or those sorts of things that kind of go along with lesson planning. And in various STEM courses, you can use AI for practice. Like Michael, we were talking about that earlier today about using AI to make practice problems, or to get feedback on different things like lab reports and et cetera. So it can be integrated in various ways across the disciplines. It doesn't need to be kind of fully embraced or fully rejected, but if you do want to experiment, then there are opportunities to do so. So before we get started, it's very helpful that John just spent the previous 50 minutes talking about tilt and what it is. So we're gonna, and that we also talked about tilt pretty much all day today. So we are going to keep that in mind, and you can use that as we are getting ready to prompt ChatGPT and to think about some of these things. But we're also, I'm going to encourage you to think about what we encourage participants in our grant to think about, right? Which is basically how your learning activity or your assignment aligns with your course learning objectives and how you feel about AI in your particular course, right? And like we've talked about earlier, you might teach 4 different courses and you might have 4 different AI policies for each one of those courses, and that's okay, right? So as we get started, I want you to think about, you know, which class you kind of want to think about for this activity that we're going to do, what one of those course learning objectives are, and then also, you know, how much or how little you want your students to engage with AI in this particular class. So think about those things as we keep going. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to draft an assignment or a learning activity. And we're going to think about how our assignment or learning activity can be critical, which encourages students to really think about the output of the AI tool that they are looking at. We're going to encourage students to actively use an AI tool in one way or another. And we're going to also think about what kind of AI tool we're going to use and how inclusive it is. So for the purposes of what we're doing here, we're going to define inclusive as a free tool that students have access to, right? And also we're going to kind of level up inclusivity by applying the TILT framework. So that's what we're going to think about doing as we kind of move into this next step. So think about which class you want to explore for this. And then ideally, we're going to take this sample prompt and you can put it right into ChatGPT or another, you know, Claude or like whatever. So you can take this, I can take it actually and copy and paste it and slap it in the chat if that would be helpful. Hang on 1 second. Chat. Boom. Okay. You'll have to modify this like just a smidgen, right? Let me go back here. Okay. So you're going to say, please generate a sample AI learning activity using the TILT framework. I'd like the sample to work for a college level, and then you say, you know, like a version of the name of the class that you are teaching. The activity should incorporate some critical evaluation of AI's output or the tool itself. The activity should use the free version of a tool and say what it is, and encourage students to actually use AI in some way to meet the learning objective or goal. I will share the learning objective with you next. And then this is a pro tip that I learned from our Teaching Effectively with ChatGPT book that we looked at in the reading group this past semester. Asking your AI tool, do you have any questions before we get started, is a really wonderful way to make sure that you didn't leave any gaps in your prompt. Usually ChatGPT will go ahead and ask me questions. Sometimes it doesn't have to ask me the questions that it's asking, like the answers are in the prompt. But I find that sometimes like I miss things, and like by asking it, do you have any questions, is a really great way for me to make sure I've kind of covered my bases. So I will encourage everybody to take this prompt and slap it into ChatGPT or the equivalent, and also find a learning objective or make one up, like it's okay, it's just an exercise, you know, and share that learning objective with your AI tool as well. So we're going to take a couple of minutes and do this.
So the sample prompt, do you mean like all 3 of those paragraphs, or do you mean just?
You should take this whole, whole thing and copy and paste it into ChatGPT, and then you're just going to fill in the appropriate stuff. So you could say like for like a college level math course, but you could be more specific, right? Like what the name of one of the math classes that you teach, for example, and that will help give it some boundaries.
Lattice theory.
There you go. I mean, we might as well. To John's.
No. Okay.
Thanks,
It
John.
won't fill it.
Board. So many questions.
This is a pretty good question.
Yeah.
Now you're just firing.
Aren't you supposed to be doing this with your own class, John?
Oh yeah. Well, but someone's using my account, so.
You didn't ask me for my learning outcomes.
Those aren't bad though.
I like this. What do you have to do? Number one, right? And then copy and paste the following prompt and it gives me a prompt. And the single-use plastic bags, I think is still relevant. What do you think? Is it still relevant?
I brought my lunch in one today.
You know? Oh,
I
John.
know.
Bonus reflection.
Bonus.
Okay, and then this is helpful. You can identify at least 2 specific strengths and 2 specific weaknesses. Okay. Do I not want that?
Assuming print initiative.
Oh, yeah.
That's not sustainable.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Plastic Bag.
Plastic bag.
Like a worksheet that I can share electronically. Look how pretty that is. Nice.
Even good color contrast.
Yeah, seriously. The good headings and all that stuff. Okay, let me, no, stop. Really? Okay, it's fine. All right, so I'm gonna go back into that. Jessica, I heard you typing away. Did you do this?
I did, but it's not that good. Because I was trying to come up off the top of my head, so don't use me.
Okay. Michael, did you get a chance to experiment while we were messing around over here?
Yeah, it sent me a question about they want to confirm some details, course context, free AI tool use, length or format, and
Yeah,
deliverables. And I'm sharing the learning objective with them now. I'm going to see what they say.
Okay, yeah, sounds great.
I
That's
got something if you want to hear what I got.
Oh, great. Hi, Amy. Yeah,
Hi,
that
how
was
are
great.
you? I've been observing all day, but not participating out loud. So hello.
Hello.
I teach marine biology online at SUNY Adirondack. And I got the similar questions back, like, is it an in-class assignment? Is it a homework assignment? Is it a group project? How long should it take students to work on this? Do they have any familiarity with AI tools, or should it include AI literacy? Is there a certain AI tool I want them to use? And how structured do I want the TILT format to be in my assignment? So I answered those questions, and then I pasted in my learning outcomes, and it came up with an activity, the title, Can AI Think Like a Marine Biologist? Exploring Scientific Validity in AI-Generated Content.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it looks good. It gives me a prompt. It says pick a topic, it gives me a prompt, and then asks the students to evaluate the accuracy, the clarity. Is there any missing information? Is there bias or misinterpretation? And then compare it to a peer-reviewed article or some kind of acceptable source. And then it gives me, kind of looks like a grading rubric for the criteria for success, and then suggests ways that they can submit it for their grade. And then I asked it to give me a Word document that I can use for the students.
That's excellent.
Yeah, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I do find that sometimes if I switch back to my exchange with it as well, you know, the questions that it asks, I do think sometimes are really helpful, you know, like when I initially prompted it, I wasn't clear about what kind of activity or assignment, you know, and it would be interesting to see, to like prompt ChatGPT again and say like, I really liked what you generated, right? Now, like, let's make something different that's a homework assignment now, or, let's make it a larger assignment that they would do out of class, which I think could be really interesting as well, right? To see what options you will get.
Be easy to modify too if you're doing it. We have snow days sometimes, and you may want to change it quickly from one thing to another, depending on what's happening in the class.
That's a great suggestion too. Thinking about, like for us, we usually switch to like a remote learning day but we had, there were several days this past semester when we had, we were canceled for like 3 days in a row. Is that right? Classes were canceled or remote because of that bad storm that we had like in February. Yeah, we had several days in a row. And that's a great suggestion for taking like whatever it was you were going to do in person that day and putting it here and having it generate something that students could do outside of class. Thank you, Amy. Michael, did you finish answering all the questions?
I did, yes. And the response that I got was, let's see. This project helps. Well, should I read it off or should I share the screen? What would you like?
Whichever's easiest for you. I can drag you if you would like to share the screen, then that would be cool. Can I have to stop? Yeah, hang on. Let me stop. Okay, I stopped.
Let me share
All right,
my
it's all
screen.
yours.
So what I wanted them to do was create a project. This course is intended for first-year students with no prior calculus exposure. Use ChatGPT free. The activities should be designed for a larger project, include a written response, a problem set, and group discussion. The intended learning objective is to interpret and draw inferences from mathematical models such as formulas, graphs, tables, and schematics, specifically an amortization schedule. And the response was purpose. See right here, it helps students learn how to interpret and draw conclusions from amortization schedules, essential tools used in real world business depictions, especially when dealing with loans and investments. In an age where AI tools like ChatGPT are increasingly used in professional, academic, and settings, this activity builds students' digital literacy and critical thinking skills by teaching them to evaluate AI-generated information for reliability. Task: what you'll do. Use ChatGPT to generate an amortization schedule for a sample loan, such as the prompt seen here. Try at least 2 different prompts to see how the output changes. Document the prompts and compare the results. Next, we have interpretation and critical evaluation. Evaluate the amortization schedules generated by ChatGPT. Identify patterns. Confirm if total payments and interest paid match financial formulas on an online calculator. They give an example, bankrate.com. Discuss what ChatGPT did well or might be misleading, missing, or unclear. Reflect on the usefulness and limitations of ChatGPT for financial analysis. Deliverable. A short written report that includes a clear amortization schedule, maybe copied from or recreated from ChatGPT's output, interpretation of key features, critique of the AI output, a brief comparison with a manually verified or calculator-generated schedule. Use a spreadsheet or a loan calculator to create your own amortization schedule using the same inputs. Verify whether ChatGPT's schedule matches or deviates. Document the differences and hypothesize why. Participate in a 20 to 30 minute small group discussion facilitated by the instructor or a TA. Be ready to discuss what you learned from using AI tools, whether you would trust AI to advise you on financial decisions, how AI changes the way we learn and apply business calculus concepts. And then we have our criteria for success, how they're graded. And I think optional instructor notes. So yes, encourage students to think about bias and transparency in AI tools. How does ChatGPT know how to generate a schedule? Can we see its formulas? Scaffold technical steps by providing a basic amortization formula in class and examples in AI prompts, which I do. And offer feedback loops. Students submit prompts early for formative feedback. Yep. So, yep, this looks pretty good. I like the idea of, how they say, let ChatGPT create a schedule for yourself, but then manually verify it yourself by creating your own schedule, like on Excel or Google Sheets. Verify what matches or what deviates, document the differences and hypothesize why. So yeah, this looks pretty good from what I see here.
I think it's interesting too that it's asking or it's or suggesting a group discussion as well, which is sort of like a nice like extra layer to kind of have students who do this activity, you know, like there's something more at stake, right? Like when they have to like kind of discuss in front of their peers or talk to you, right, about sort of like their answers to their questions and what they did as they learned from this activity, I think encourages them also to be more hands-on, or, you know, because there's that kind of like scary, like, oh, I have to talk about what I did component.
It's less threatening when they're talking to each other too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So now what we're going to do is sort of a different version of the activity that we just did. So I'm going to have you take a minute and locate an assignment that you have given before, right? Like in any of your, you know, think about a class, think about one assignment in one of your classes that currently does not incorporate AI in any way, right? So take a couple minutes and find that assignment and have it handy for our next steps. And then you can give me a thumbs up on Zoom or just let me know when you're ready, and then we will proceed. Thank you, Michael. Awesome. Thank you, Amy. Cool. John, are you finding one too? Are you doing other stuff?
I'm uploading videos.
All right, John has his too. All right. So what I want you to do is you have two choices here, right? Because I understand that not everyone is excited about uploading their assignments to ChatGPT, right? So if you don't want to do that, then that's all right. So option one is to take your assignment and upload it to ChatGPT, and you're going to ask it to redesign your assignment with a critical, active, and inclusive AI component. So pretty much like right now, what we did the first time, right, was we had AI just like draft an assignment from scratch. But now you're going to ask it to sort of revise one of your assignments that you've been doing already and to add that critical, active, or inclusive component to it. If you don't want to upload your whole assignment, then you can sort of like just tell it what your assignment is doing in kind of like a general way, or upload like a piece of copy and paste, like a piece of your assignment so it has like a sense. But basically, and you could say in your prompt as well, when you're asking it to be critical, active, and inclusive, you could say, I am concerned that students might just use AI to complete this activity. So I want to redesign it in a way that incorporates AI so that, you know, that's part of the process from the beginning. Let me go.
And you might also want to add a little definition of that involves students' critical thinking, you know, and so forth, just because critical could be interpreted different ways by AI systems.
That's true. Although if you are in the same,
if it's in the same,
if you're in the same prompt that you were in before, then it should remember it. Yeah.
Yes.
Where'd my, hang on though, a minute.
Me too.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, there we go. Woof. All right, so I'll go back to this just so that it's right here. Well, or we can stay there. Jessica made a thoughtful noise in the room,
Yeah.
so I know she's working on it. Amy and Michael, when you guys are done, you can either make a thoughtful noise or give me another thumbs up. Or a thumbs down if it
Working.
was a bad experience. Yeah, take your time.
5 of today's workshops are now available on the schedule, the video.
Love it.
So I chose an assignment that a colleague of mine, I work with her in a different area, but it's assignment she created. It's the one that the student had told us about. That's kind of, she's AI, like doesn't want to use it. And it comes up with some really great ideas for that assignment that she probably should use.
Good question.
Thank you.
And nice slides, unlike those ugly ones here in the middle there.
You're playing blue ones. No, they're good. They're to the point. Remember, it's about you as the
Right.
presenter.
Right. It's the performance.
Yeah.
You got it.
Well, we don't need to
You
talk
got
about that
it.
either.
Wow, look at that. Everybody online gave like almost simultaneous thumbs up. I love it. Okay, so I stopped sharing. Who would like to go first? And feel free to share your screen if that's easier instead of like just talking. But if talking's easier, then do that.
I'll go first if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Let me find it. This- Nope, that's not it. Hold on one second. Shit. Nope, still the wrong one. I have 2 screens and I'm not used to sharing one versus the other. Hold on one second.
That's okay. I have that problem too.
Let's see.
I did that incorrectly this morning just to make everyone feel more comfortable.
Thank you. Okay, there we go. Can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I put in community college professor redesigning a marine biology assignment using 2 articles and design a new assignment where students can use AI appropriately, incorporate AI as part of the process. Students meet the assignment goals and what learning objectives does it connect to? So evaluating the scientific validity of information pertaining to oceanography and marine biology delivered by mass media. So they're going to compare a journal research article and a news story and then an AI output using ChatGPT. So read the articles, ask it to summarize, evaluate and compare the main findings. Do they match or do they differ? Which was most helpful for your understanding and why, whether it's the AI, the popular media, or the journal article, and then reflect on the use of AI in science learning.
Interesting. I would be really fascinated to learn, you know, if you take this assignment and do something with it,
Yeah,
one would be most helpful, you know, especially given that like students could ask the AI tool to like generate the thing, right? But then
Right,
they could
right.
also ask the AI tool to like rewrite it in language that is more user friendly. Like if the journal especially is using a lot of really specific jargon, I think
Right.
that would be interesting.
And I would like to grade this way better than an essay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not bad.
It's something to start from. And like I had just gone through my syllabus yesterday and flagged some of my assignments that I wanted to reconsider, and this is one of them. So
Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Michael, would you like to share what your prompting experiment came up with?
Let's open. All right, so I took a project that I give in introductory statistics, where I asked students to conduct a hypothesis test by surveying data on their surveying students on their own and comparing a parameter value in one population to another population, or regression analysis, or maybe just comparing to see if a parameter value exceeds or doesn't exceed a particular value. So this project gives you the opportunity to apply the concepts of hypothesis testing to a topic of your choosing while critically evaluating your use of AI as a research and analysis tool. You should be able to construct and test a statistical hypothesis, interpret data, and evaluate results using statistical tools, understand and evaluate the usefulness and limits of AI tools in hypothesis testing research and statistical reasoning, reflect on how data collection assumptions and analysis influence real-world decision-making. You'll work in small groups, not necessarily, to design a survey-based hypothesis test. Basically choose what your hypothesis test is going to be based around and how you're going to survey it. Use ChatGPT free to brainstorm survey questions. Get help designing your null and alternative hypotheses, which I know students sometimes need help with, since a lot of students just come to me saying, I do not know what I want my subject to be about. Even if it's of their choice, they don't know how to choose on their own. Generate example data if needed as a mock trial. Clarify statistical methods or formulas. Collect your own data through a simple random sample. Analyze your data using hypothesis testing techniques, including summary statistics, test statistic, and significance level. Critically evaluate ChatGPT's responses for accuracy, bias, and usefulness in your project. Write up a full report in 4 parts as outlined below. This is part of why, well, that was part of the prompt, is that I give the students, 4 stages that they have to write the whole project out in. So the parts, let's see, well, how to use ChatGPT effectively in this project. They do mention, what to use, suggested uses, like how to formulate the hypotheses, clarifying terms such as p-values. Since a lot of students mistake exactly what a p-value is, they get it confused with critical value and among other things. Get sample data formatting, explain errors you don't understand, generate a mock data set before collecting your own, and says don't rely on ChatGPT for mathematical calculations. And let's see, so next we have the subjects. Introduction. What was your topic? Why did you choose it? What were your null and alternative hypotheses? How did ChatGPT help you to develop your question and hypotheses? Provide background information and any expectations you had. Section 2. Describe how you collected your data, who, how, when, where. Share the actual survey questions. Explain how you ensured random sampling. Present your data in a table or a chart. Briefly discuss ChatGPT's role in survey design or formatting data. I suppose if they wanted to include what the mock data that they generated looked like, they would do so here. Statistical analysis. Explain how you calculated summary statistics. Show your test statistic, p-value, or critical value in decision. State your chosen significance level. They seem to know already that the usual significance level is 5%. Use p-value method, confidence interval, or both to explain your choice. I'm surprised they didn't choose critical value score or t-score for this, but indicate whether you reject or fail to reject the null hypotheses. Discuss your ChatGPT's contribution, whether it was accurate, and then reflect on your results, what your results mean in the context of your topic. If you rejected the null hypothesis, what real implications might this have? If you fail to reject the null hypothesis, what might you do differently? Discuss any problems or surprises with your survey and evaluate how ChatGPT helped or hindered your understanding. Was it clear? Did you have to fact check it? Would you use it again in future research? So that would be the project that was created.
Interesting.
And what's funny is when I got down here to the examples of possible topics, I'm pretty sure multiple students had this first question as their hypothesis test last semester. And at least one student had this second question here as their hypothesis test last semester.
Interesting. And I like that all of I mean, I will say, like, the examples of possible topics are all relevant to college students, you know? I mean, I think that was good, that it made it that, that it made it that way.
Mhm.
Thank you. Jessica, would you like to talk at all about what you did?
So I did the assignment that I kind of used was like a micro teaching assignment where students are actually teaching the class and they're not allowed to use like Google Slides or anything like that. It's more of like they have to bring in props and they have to be like they're doing a TED talk, right? And in doing so, students really get caught off guard because they're not allowed to use like notes or anything. We want them to be engaging and kind of move around the classroom, not their typical type of presentation that they're used to in college, right? Sometimes they just have PowerPoints or whatever. So a lot of times we see points getting taken off, things like that. They have to come up with their own learning outcomes for their talks. So it kind of broke down, it created a table for me because I did something different than the last prompt. So it started over. But it talked about how to integrate AI in several different areas for it, kind of the allowable AI use with topic exploration, like how to brainstorm topic, right? Helping them draft objectives using Bloom's taxonomy verbs. But it said what to use AI and then their responsibility, right? Gave me a table. So then it said like, if you're using it to help you draft AI objectives, it then said critically review, revise the generated objectives with clarity, alignment, and scope, but it doesn't go into detail about that. So that would be something. But it also talks about helping them with script drafting, handout development, because they have to have a handout for the class as well. And then what I liked the best of that was really the teaching tools, ideas for creative props or story ideas, because that's what students have trouble with. They know the content, and they can talk to you about it. They get nervous because there's no resource. And then the last one, which I really liked, they talked about practice feedback, using AI to simulate audience questions that you might receive during your micro teaching, those types of things. So I kind of did a little different, but it worked.
Yeah.
And it gave some prompts that help with metacognition and discourages blind reliance on AI.
That's great. So three very different assignments and, like ways that AI could be sort of incorporated into those different activities or assignments as well. We are just about at the end, so I will just kind of go back very, very briefly. And
I have a question.
yes, go for it.
I continued to play with it and then it asked, and I said, change this into an online discussion forum assignment for the same class. And now it says, do I want it formatted in a version specific for my LMS like Canvas or Blackboard or Brightspace? Has anyone done that? Can you download it in a format that's uploadable into Brightspace?
In theory, we talked about this a little bit offline.
Okay.
What happens is it creates a CSV file or zip file, but it can't be read. And one possible explanation is it's just doing it wrong. It's just not creating it appropriately.
Gotcha.
But the other is that we don't have the ability to import assignments or rubrics or other things as CSV files, apparently. We can import zip files. So we actually tried that during a break between sessions, and it didn't work. It broke down when it was trying to read the zip file. It could be that as a SUNY-wide thing, there's a restriction on that, partly because uploading CSV files is how students get added to courses and other things, and the access to that ability is restricted to system administrators. So we don't know if it's because of a limitation on our Brightspace or if it's just not doing it correctly. So basically, copying and pasting is the easiest way of doing it right now. Or saving it as HTML and then pasting it into using the source code.
And a lot of the time, like ChatGPT especially, will kind of go through and already format it appropriately. And it's usually pretty good about things like accessibility. But if you want, you could add into your prompt, like, please make sure that this output, like that this is in an accessible format. or, you know, that this is organized with accessibility in mind, or like you could specifically tell it that to kind of like up your chances of getting an accessible text output. So just like we are kind of at the end, but the recording will be available, and the QR code also to have these slides was shared at the very beginning. I included a couple of extra sample assignments, like just for fun, because I couldn't help myself. So feel free to sort of like check those out if you would like additional stuff. But honestly, it sounds like everybody here was kind of playing along and having, you know,
Almost
having fun
everyone.
with almost everyone except for John. Was kind of playing along and whatever else. So I hope that this was helpful. Does anybody have any final questions or comments before we wrap up for the day? Cool.
Well, thanks for joining, and we look forward to seeing more of you guys.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And I'll be more awake tomorrow.
Thanks to
Bye.
both of you. Your presentations were great today.
Thanks for sticking with us throughout the day.
Much appreciated.
And half of them look really good and we're better. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.